Okay, so we're going to kick this off. Today we're going to be building yet another story. And these principles that we're going to be learning about can be applied to movies. This specific story that we're going to be working on is going to serve as a comic that's going to end up in the book Stuffy 4. But storytelling is important, and you see it everywhere. It is in videos that you see on social media, it's in movies, it's how the news is reported. So these principles, though I'm using them specifically for comics, in this instance I've used them for feature films, for short stories, for videos, and once you learn them, then it's fun, it's powerful, it's important, and yeah, let's get into it. I'm just going to wipe these down since we already took a picture, and we'll be refining these later. So, something I want to touch on today is theme. And the theme of the specific story that I'm working on for Stuffy 4 changed quite a bit. This is one of those challenges that can really, from creating something, if it's not right. And the question that comes to mind is, how do you know whether or not your theme is right? Only you can answer that. And it reminds me of something an instructor told me years ago when I was in college. I went to Full Sail University, and I was in this class and I was doing well, and I was creating art, and I had asked this instructor, who said, wow, she was very complimentary, and she said, you're very talented, and she said, you need to start doing gallery shows and get your stuff out there. And I was like, yeah, but like, what do I do? Like, what art do I make? And then she smiled, knowing like she had been at that crossroads in her journey. Every artist has. And she said, only you can answer that. And that is like a sentence almost. And you have to answer that for yourself. What do you love? What do you get excited about? And it also ties in with that idea of know thyself, right? Where that's work that it seems as though everyone else in the world can understand about you right away, but it takes a really long time for you to understand that. And even if you do understand what that thing is, fine-tuning and getting specific about it becomes a challenge. So for Stuffy 4, one might think that, oh, that's easy, you just do another one. And on one end, that's true. On another end, it's not, because I want it to feel right. I also want to be motivated to do it, and in order to do that, I have to actually love doing it, and I have to continue on and feel like it's actually growing and building not only the story that I'm building, but like building in the right direction in my life, and feeling like other people would gain value from it and be entertained by it, but then I'm also trying to say something with it. And though the medium, and the character is silly, I also want it to be something that lasts, that, there's this concept on YouTube of like making something that's evergreen. Well, the way that you do that is you consider what is valuable, and you have to ask yourself what is valuable to you, and you have to study those things. So I had already created a convention with Stuffy that the original was the original. It was just called Stuffy, and that was the book. And then Stuffy 2 came along. Let's see here. And Stuffy 2 came along, and I titled it Stuffy 2 Breaking Through. And that one was all about being successful and being on the journey of continuing on and hitting failures and not allowing those to define Stuffy, but allowing them to help him improve. And then the third book was Stuffy 3. And this one was a challenge. This was a challenge for me because I'm a self-published author, and when the format on Amazon came up that you could make your own hard book, I was like, whoa, that's awesome. That's a different level of quality. And I was really, really excited about the quality of the book. And for the very first time, I was like, man, I can make an actual physical book that could sit on a shelf and feel real. And though I had heard that the option was available, I didn't know what the quality would be, and I was really stoked with how it came out. But in order to get a book on Amazon that is a hardcover or a paperback like this, and not a floppy version like this, you had to, or I had to do, upwards of 75 pages in order to hit the requirement in order to make the book. At that time, I think Stuffy, the original, and Stuffy 2 only hit a like 23 page count. So that's a lot of illustrations, and that book was a little bit simpler. It was made during the time that my kids were babies and toddlers, and I thought, oh, okay, like that'll be perfect. It doesn't need to be overly complicated, and simple's best anyway. Keep it simple, Stuffy. But with this, I thought, I gotta move into a little bit more advanced story. So this one was all about the magic of ancestry and Stuffy discovering that he had a family, and then he had a lineage, and he goes on this magical journey where he finds his actual literal family tree. Let's see here. Yeah. Finds his literal family tree and then unlocks it and goes inside and then meets ancestors of his past. And it was a fun and very challenging story. And when I got to the end of it, I was like, okay, well, I'm done. What's the next one? And I've been kind of bestowed upon this quest to do at least 5 Stuffy books, and I think I'll do more. If the ideas feel right and they come to me. And Stuffy 4 has taken a while because I've kind of moved from one idea to the next, trying to tie it back into a theme that I would connect with and that would feel authentic to me, and then I feel like others would connect with as well. So For a while, I was really onto this like dreamland that Stuffy explores, and I'm still not done with that. But then recently, I came up with the idea of Stuffy 4, Art is War. And the image that came to mind was kind of like a cross between Stuffy and Rambo. And the main theme is that art isn't easy. And my mind started exploding on this because art isn't easy. It can be, but then it also can't be. It's almost like life, you know, it's like it can be great and then it can also be awful. And that's just the truth. And it's navigating that over and over again, whether or not you show up for it. That's what makes you an artist. And being creative is understanding that that is part of it, is that some days you're like, I don't feel creative today. I just don't have the juice. But you show up anyway, and you do it anyway. Why? Well, because you love it, because you've reached the point where you've had success. You've felt what it is to create something that really moves people, and they're like, whoa, what was that? That's amazing. And when you do that a couple of times, and then you start building that momentum, it's addicting. And so, as we are working on these little comic book panels, and these become the pages of what will be an actual physical book, and you can do that too, and you start understanding what it is that you want to say, and you build that confidence. Oh man, it's an awesome feeling. It's a powerful feeling. It can be a career if you really understand how to do it. And so that's kind of the goal with this channel, with these books, is hopefully to have something that other people connect with and that they find enjoyment from, but then they also find truth in. And if you guys have any suggestions on how to improve the channel, let me know. I'm going to get into today's session right now, and we're just going to once again build a story live, build it from scratch, and we won't be getting it all the way done today. I do these in multiple sessions, and the reason for that, as mentioned in previous videos, is it's important for us to connect with an idea, get it to a certain point where we feel like we have the majority of the idea, then pause, come back to it another day when we're sharp, look at it, assess, and say, is this the best version of it? Okay, if it is, if we feel confident, then we can finish it off. But going in passes and showing and continually showing up and being consistent with building a story is important. So let's get into it. Let's see what magic we can make today. Okay, so if the theme is art is war, that means that art is, there are some days where it doesn't come, and just starting is rule number one. And here we have the blank page, which was the idea of the comic that we made in the previous session. So what other challenges could Stuffy face as he's creating, or what other projects could he be working on? In the last one, he was a designer and he was working for a client. So to keep things different and to move from page to page, we should have this one be slightly different, right? You don't want to have the exact same, you're going to have the same theme. It's about art, it's about being creative, but you should make each one feel a little bit different. So if Stuffy was at a drawing board last time, maybe in this one, he's sculpting something. Oh, this is good. Already, as soon as I say sculpting something, the image of Stuffy, it's almost like a full shot. Okay, so then we'll have Stuffy. He's got his artist smock, and he's in his art studio. And let's see here. Little cubbies. And because this is a comic, we could even start off Stuffy. We could have, you know, a little action box or a dialogue box that explains that Stuffy is in his studio. But a format that I liked, I looked at somebody else's book, and they had a lot of the dialogue very simply underneath so that they didn't have word bubbles all the time in the actual panel. And I think for our purposes, we can do a little bit of both. But this, to like build it really quickly and to understand the story that we're capturing, I'll just make notes down below here in order to remind myself what the idea is. So in this, the first idea that came to mind is if Stuffy is sculpting, it reminds me of, there's a famous quote by Michelangelo that he had talked about the sculpture. It's a very romantic quote, but it's like the sculpture was already in the marble, right? Like he hadn't even carved it, and it was his job to release it. And it's this like very poetic, romantic view of art, and it's so confident, and it's as if he's saying, it's like, it's not that I'm talented, it's that I was I was chosen to just show up and release. The thing is already in there, and God has told me that I am the one to just chisel away. It's very easy for me. I just chisel away the pieces, and then there it is. It was always there. And this sets up something perfect as an artist, because a lot of us don't feel like that. A lot of us feel like, I don't know what's in there, and it's this like meandering path of sometimes I get it, sometimes I don't. And I want Stuffy to embody that feeling, because why? That is the theme of our story that we're working on. So in the very beginning, he's got like this lump of clay, and he's trying to embody, or maybe it's a rock, and he's got a chisel. let's see here. A chisel and maybe, let's see here. If he was going to be hitting it with like a hammer, then his chisel would be this way. And again, this is, we will change the orientation to best suit our needs. We're just going to stage it so we can remember what we're trying to say, and then cleanup will come later. And okay, so he's sitting here. He's got he'll be sitting at his like little potter's wheel, and then he's got a rock, like he's got a chunk of marble, and he's trying to be Michelangelo. He's trying to be a Renaissance sculptor and painter of epic proportions, and so he'll directly quote Michelangelo. Okay, so then so the form is already in the rock. I just need to chisel away and release it. And we've gone from a mid close-up, mid shot, almost a cowboy. That's what is called a cowboy when a figure in one of your panels is up to the hips, because in classic westerns, a cowboy would have guns on his hips, so they would need to get those in the shot, but they wouldn't necessarily need to have the bottom of the character's legs in. And oftentimes they would, they'd have the cowboy sitting there, they're about to duel, and they'd show the guns and the hands go, and then they would switch to a close-up of the hand going to the gun. So we're going to kind of do something similar where we have Stuffy, he's chiseling his sculpture, and he's being very romantic, and so we show him, all the important information is there. He's wearing his smock, and he's working his rock. He's going to be creating something that Michelangelo would be proud of, and then he's going to, this will be a close-up, even though it's not rendered extremely well. This will be a close-up of his hammer hitting his spike, his chisel, and then rocks going flying. Tink! And then we'll have the sound effect there in a little sound effect box, you know, little kind of like a zappy looking sound effect box. And then a close-up of the stuff man. Maybe his emotion has changed. He made a mistake. Because again, you know, as we build these stories, you want to have changes in emotion, changes in what you're showing to keep interest. And now something happened. He's hit conflict, a challenge. This is important in every story. This is what moves things along. We go from one state, he's happy, to something happened. And the whole idea of this story specifically is to show the difference in viewpoints of art. And he goes in, as many artists do, with the concept that, oh, I'm going to be excellent at this. I'm going to be like Michelangelo, and I'm going to sculpt the perfect thing. And then, tink, something happened. Maybe he didn't release the form. Maybe what he's creating was a huge mistake. So we will, let's think here. Think for a second. What could happen? Ooh, so the idea that just came is, and this is a funny idea. So maybe because Stuffy learns right away that sculpting is extremely hard, he starts off with rock, and then he tries to be creative. He proves his creativity by the end because he starts mixing mediums. Maybe rock, dang it. And then we can show like a chunk of his sculpture breaks off. But in order for him to fix it, he switches to another medium. And maybe he grabs like wet clay and he adds it to his sculpture. And then the wet clay dries and cracks. And then he adds wood, and then he adds and adds and adds. And by the end, it's this crazy sculpture that maybe it could be really awesome, and it proves that he is creative. And I don't know, I kind of like the idea of him going through this whole process, creating something that is extremely unique and different, that would actually, you know, that would actually be respected by other artists. Like, wow, you came to something that was completely different than your original thought, but maybe it's through his challenges that he recognizes, I am an artist, I'm just not Michelangelo. So let's, again, as we're building these ideas and we're in like the creation stage, we just need to capture it, get it on here, then we'll take a picture and then store it in a safe place so that once we go back through and we're in a different mode of like polishing, then we can do that at a different stage. But this is all about just getting the idea so that at any point in the future that we come back to it, to spend more time polishing it up, making it look good, refining the story, that we can do that and understand what it was that we were thinking in the moment. So He's working on his sculpture. Tink, dang it, he makes a mistake. Half of his rock is gone. So then he has his good idea that he'll add a different medium. So then we'll have a full shot of him working feverishly. And he'll be working on his sculpture here. And I'm thinking to quickly kind of grab the idea. He'll go through, he'll add all these things. And then we can even show him at like a gallery showing. And then someone can walk up and say, what is it? And maybe he can say something to the effect, which is kind of a cop-out, where it's like, well, that's up for your interpretation. And then he can walk out. Or something to that effect. That he takes this idea, it was this one thing, but then he creates something else. Maybe someone loves it, maybe someone hates it, but that's kind of the process of art. Um, but as we've gotten to this point, I think it's a good stopping point, and we will pick it up tomorrow and finish it up. Thanks again, guys, for jumping in and hanging out with me, and I wish you best of luck on your stories. See you tomorrow.